Hi everyone, my name's Adam Desmond from IDverse. I'm the VP of Sales for Europe and looking forward to the conversation today. I've been in the identity space for the last 10 years, so I've seen it evolve over that period of time and excited to have a chat with Lanre today, all things identity.
Yeah, same here, Adam. Really lovely to be chatting with you. And hi, everyone. My name is Lanre. I'm the CEO and founder of Prembly. Also, but I haven't spent 10 years in this space like Adam. But one of the things we've done in the last few years, very close to 70 years, is again around identity space. In terms of verifications or background checks or sanction screens basically. And we're really big on emerging markets, so helping everyone across emerging markets, Latin, Sub-Saharan Africa or Asia, to be recognized globally. Looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, no, perfect. I've got a question for you, Lanre. What's the one thing that people assume about you that's totally wrong?
Um, uh, what's that one thing? Sometimes those kind of questions are quite difficult to answer though, Adam, because you don't know what people are thinking about you, unless of course they tell you. But I've had instances where people think, um, initially I was, um, what's the last time? I'm trying to remember the last thing people said, but I think I've had instances around when people asked about, I think, my background. I've had people talked about, I've had few cases where people think perhaps I grew up in from a city, and I keep telling people no, I was a village boy. I was from a very rural place, and so I've had cases, where people think I probably was a city boy or I lived in the city. I'm like, no. I just right now we live in the city, but I never lived there. I
Yeah,
never grew up in the
you're a
city. I was
country boy at
literally,
heart.
yeah, I was from the farms. I grew up
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
farm. Yeah.
For me, it's always
But,
a height. So we do so many of these Zoom calls. When
mhm.
people meet you in person, it's the height thing. So I'm 6'1", but
You're
when
six. You're 6.1.
yeah. So when I meet people, they always like, oh, I didn't think you'd be as tall as you are.
Do you believe in the fun fact that sometimes you're shorter some days and some days you're taller?
I feel like you shrink as you get older,
You are.
but
Yeah.
that's maybe not doing enough exercise.
Yeah. I'm 5'9",
Yeah.
right now. But 5'9", 5'11", one of those. I need to check it again. I think some days I was 5'9", I think some days I was 5'11".
Depends on the
But
shoes you're wearing, right?
depend on the shoe you wear. Depend on the shoe you wear. But great. But that's a good height. Were you ever into sports at all with that height?
Yeah, yeah. The sport's a big part of my identity. So a big background in sports. I used to swim for Great Britain. So from a young kid, done all the sports, but focused in on one sport. And yeah, it's a big part of my life. I think a lot of
E-
the things you learn in sport transferable across to business and sales as well.
Ever made it to the Olympics, or you just never did?
I went to the Olympic trials for Great Britain, but didn't quite make it.
Oh,
It was a tough year. The guy that went through to the Olympics, he ended up winning the medal, a silver medal there. So
okay, okay.
a
You should be proud
competitive
then.
a competitive year.
And it's never too late. I'm still gonna root for you.
Yeah, maybe if I lose a leg or something like that, I might be able to do the Paralympics perhaps.
Okay.
But to identity then and sort of the
Yeah.
visibility
Mm,
of identity, and I'm
yeah.
a big believer that identity is with you from the day you're born, right?
Mhm.
You get given a name, the date of birth is important in identity, and then obviously where you live, and that can change over time. Um, One of the things we're focused on as a partnership is inclusion and making sure people, anyone, anywhere can go through a process and get access
Yeah.
to services and things like that.
Yeah.
So, if you've got any stories or any perspectives of, where it's been a problem to get a
Mhm.
service or access to services or solutions, you're a countryman, so yeah, not even having internet access and things like that. How are those challenges sort of changing over time, and what are
Yeah.
Prembly and IDverse doing to solve those challenges?
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for that. We've had several instances of, visibility issues, especially some people not feeling visible actually. We've had instances where some people cannot unlock the devices because they have like tribal marks on their faces. And then we've seen instances where, I mean, they use like latest devices, right? But they just can't unlock their devices, for instance, because they have like tribal marks. Or instances where you have people not being able to access global products and services. And I think for a very long time, in many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, which still exists today, you have instances where you can't receive payments directly, or you can't access some streaming platforms, either music platforms or, or movie platforms. And primarily because, they can't be verified or identified. And it's a chicken and the egg problem. The businesses, of course, do not want fraud to happen on the system. They try to make sure that the right people on the systems, the right people are actually coming, but the businesses cannot ascertain that this person is actually who they say they are. I think that's where we come in,
Yeah.
where both as IDverse and Prembly were able to guarantee to the business that this person is actually who they say they are at the point of either onboarding or doing transactions and all that. But we've had a lot of cases when it comes to visibility, and to be honest, I mean, just on the topic of visibility, one of the I was speaking at an event just a few months ago, and my topic was on building for all.
Mm.
And I was making instances where sometimes we build products and services that some people in the society cannot access. So either because they are, living with disabilities, or because they are of a skin tone, or because they're from a, geography or location. And I think it's on us as business leaders to
Yeah.
always be from a perspective of they should be available to everyone.
Yeah.
Except of course if the services shouldn't be, but
Yeah.
someone shouldn't be stopped because they look a certain way
Yeah.
or because they are a certain type. And yeah, and I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of work that we can do together, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I think the real benefit is that the technology you talked about, mobile
Yeah,
phones and advancement we're seeing in the devices and the cameras. Really, we've got a lot to thank for these cameras that are coming out, and people are carrying them around with them because actually the hardware enables us to do better things with the software, because
yeah,
there's things like that are built into these cameras that enable us to do more security checks, get better images and better
hmm
quality images of somebody's face. So
hmm
so yeah, we're a big believer in using generative AI. So
yeah,
if you are struggling with somebody with a slightly different complexion or skin tone that you
yeah,
reference,
yeah,
actually there's no reason why you can't use technology to train those
yeah,
systems to make it accessible,
yeah,
and even things like disability, right? There's
yeah,
clear guidance and standards out there that
yeah,
you can follow and you can practice, so that actually you're not discriminate against somebody that's visually impaired,
yeah,
or they've got a disability, facial paralysis, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
utilizing technology and what we can do with these mobile phones that can really
yeah,
help get people through that process
yeah, yeah.
quickly.
And like, I think the whole essence of technology, to be honest, is really to be able to, I think one of the primary reasons why we have technology is to bring everyone into, the whole connective community, and we all feel connected, and not we don't have to separate some people out of some people. But talking about, being invisible, have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever interacted with any system where, you felt, hey guys, I'm here, are you not seeing me?
Yeah, I think I've got a story actually when I was doing a banking transaction,
Okay.
and I think when things are going well with your bank and you're onboarded and they want your business, it's sort of a good thing, right? But when it's designing systems and programs, so when things are not going well, that's really important, because that's when you're at your most heightened period of stress of going through a process, or you're frustrated with the process because you're just trying to do a legitimate and a genuine transaction. In my instance, I was transferring some money from one account to another account, and I don't do that often, right, in sort of everyday business. So the monitoring systems flagged it, which I felt good about, right? Somebody's not going to be
hmm
able to move money from my account, but
Yeah.
actually it was the processes that they put in place that were quite difficult to get around. So rather than be able to do it fairly quickly, most people want that instant gratification. It took me hours of phone calls and proving I was who I was saying I was, when actually the technology advancements are there to make that a lot slicker and a lot quicker. So I appreciated it at the time for the fact that, oh, they're not letting me just transfer money out and anybody could maybe compromise my account and make that happen, but they're putting things in place to protect me. But the things they put in place to protect me were maybe overkill and too much. Yeah, so being in the industry and knowledge, I'm like, oh, there's an easier way of doing this, right? And just use my face, link it to the original transaction. Yes, I'm still who I say I am. So it was like a bittersweet moment of, I appreciated they're protecting my money, but then I also frustrated because I couldn't move the money when I needed it to move, sort of thing. So it's that balance of getting customer experience and security right.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
And I think, and I do think it allows us to create that balance. Especially with our technology, working with some of those banks, right? But I think everyone has that one not too good story with their bank, just similar to yours, and like what you said, when you come on the bank, when you the first time you come into the bank, they're really nice and they're the best. But at some point, they can be frustrating. And I've had a similar experience, but for me, I felt invisible. I think mine was very close to um, the motor administrative folks, the driving. Mine was very close to the driver's license, kind of a thing. I was moving out of states, well, out of country actually, moving from a country to another country, and I just want to drive. Just for the short time I was there, and of course I did my research, and I was told that you could have international driver's license, so not in country, but international driver's license, and you can use that to drive. But I went to the local office of the motor license administrators, and they couldn't verify me. One, they couldn't verify me. One, and they couldn't verify the license that I submitted. Um, and then I asked them how would I do this, and they said, well, you need to write to your embassy, and not because we can do this for some countries, but for some other countries, especially those coming from emerging market, we can't. And I felt invisible there because I could vividly, because we had a long queue, and I could see other people from other part of the world, just submitting their international license, and from there they were able to convert that to an in-state driver's license, especially because they came from countries where they drive on the left side of the car. And for that, for me, I felt invisible. And one of the things that I hope is that we're able to work, especially some of our partnerships, we're able to work with so many agencies like that, where we can actually help them identify people from other places and say, hey, yes, this is a real international driver's license, and it was issued by this particular region or jurisdiction or state government or local government. I think that's the most recent invisible scenario that I have.
And it just goes to show though that the technology advancements are so quick now that these problems shouldn't exist today, right? And I don't know how long ago your experience was, but there is technology and there is solutions out there to solve these problems, right here today. It's not like there's no answer to that problem. So yeah, I can understand your frustration, but they're very similar, although they're different use cases. It's the same problem of identifying somebody is who they say they are, right?
Yeah. And that's right. But talking about, maybe we should switch the conversation a little bit. Talking about legal identity, I'm sure the different forms of identity that exist, right? You have your social identity, you have your even some people have religious identity, and have different types of identity. But let's talk a little bit about the legal identity. What really, from your perspective, was really the importance of everyone really having legal identity, knowing the fact that there are over close to between 800 million to 1 billion people globally that do not have any form of digital and legal identity, and 81% of that number stays in between sub-Saharan Africa and all the emerging countries. What do you think is the importance of really having a legal identity?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the access to the services again, because of the governments and the processes and the regulations that are in place.
Hmm.
Without a legal identity, you're just excluded from so many different opportunities, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, you can't get a bank account. If you don't
Hmm.
have a bank account, you probably can't get a home or a house. If you
Yeah,
haven't got a house, you can't get a job. So
yeah.
the knock-on effects and the ramifications of that are huge, right? Because and it all starts, we talked about at the start, is your
Yeah,
identity starts from the day you're born.
yeah.
So some people are fortunate and they're born into an environment where they've got all of these things and it's standard and
Hmm.
it's expected. But
Hmm.
how many people are unbanked across the world? The number's huge, right? So
Yeah,
that is a worldwide problem and something that governments and organisations have to figure out and deal with, right? And for me, you should be able to. You are your identity. So you're
yeah,
born, you've got that date of birth, you're given a
yeah,
name, but you can change your
yeah.
name over time. So it's how do you should be able to create an identity at any point during your life. If you just because you haven't got a bank account, it doesn't define you as an individual, right? Just because
Hmm.
you're not on an electoral roll or a register with a government somewhere, you're still a person and a human being that
Yes.
should be able to get access to services and open bank accounts, get a driving license or a job and things like that. So yeah, having a legal identity is huge, and it's again, there's ways and abilities to do that using technology to solve those challenges, because yes, you may not legally know who I am, but I've got a face and I've got
Mhm.
details behind it. So just because we
Yes.
don't know you from when you were born, why could you not start an identity from fresh and say, right, okay, I'm not any of these systems, I've not got a legal identity, because maybe I was
Yeah,
homeless or brought up in poverty and I didn't have the luxuries that some people have.
yeah,
And yeah, I may start with limited services, but give me the chance to create an identity and build it from there, right? It's that
yeah, yeah,
initial trust.
yeah. And completely agree. Completely agree. With everything you said, especially from the perspective of, um, identity start the day you were given birth to, right? And up to you, day you die, a different, part of different events that happen in one's lifetime, that changes that legal identity. It could be marriage, it could be, your what to call your social class, your whatever it is, right? And it just segment to your academic achievement and all that. But I sometimes see it from the lens of giving a legal identity is really important, but also it's the role of the government to do it many times, for so many for a lot of countries. And we've seen sometimes that there's some countries that are lacking behind either in the way the systems are created, right? And sometimes when I talk about legal identity, I talk about it from a lens of the citizens are just a victim of their government, whatever country this is,
Yeah,
not really being proactive like all the countries are in terms of the security, the identity security of the people, right? And in those instances, I would always say, businesses, um, need to be flexible enough to be able to have alternative data as some form of identity as well. And you've
yeah,
mentioned it in terms of, yes, you could have, hey, this is this person given birth to you on this particular day. But also, there's so many other data points about this person, right? Where they went to school, either or they didn't go to school, where they live, their utility bills and all those things, and all those things can be used to create a pattern, and that's some of the things that technology also can do, where you can easily create patterns using the event of this person, right? And you don't have to deny the person the ability to, you know do some basic activity, open a bank account and all that. Even though I know that for many countries, opening a bank account is more, there's so many requirements legally from the regulators and say this is what you need to do. But I think we need to have the conversation to say there's so many people that are a victim of um, inefficiencies of certain governments. And those sort of people, you need to, businesses need to be flexible enough to accept both legal and alternative data
yeah,
to be able to verify this person. But But we cannot shy away from the fact that legal identification it's almost a fundamental human right at this point for every single person on earth.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I think it's a big topic, and we probably won't solve it today on the call, but it's yeah, definitely one. Whenever I have conversations with people and organisations, it's a big number of people that have got no identity, and it does restrict them so much. So it's
Yeah,
everything's solvable,
yeah,
especially with technology. And I think, COVID did a lot to accelerate the adoption of technology and being remote and things like that. And I think some governments are doing some really good things. Like if you look at South Africa, the DHA database, where it's a biometric database, that's almost leapfrogging what most people are doing in Europe, right?
yes.
So I think Africa's really pushing the boundaries and trying to bring these technology advancements to the market.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
it's a positive change, right?
Hmm.
Because we're reducing even more friction by necessarily having to show your document or get your document out. If you've got
Yeah.
a biometric database,
Yeah.
then you can utilize that biometric technology to authenticate someone is who they say they are,
Hmm.
utilizing their face that they carry around with them, and that is their identity, is their face, right?
Yes.
What they look like.
Yes. Yes. Completely. You're right. You're right. And Adam, when I have conversations like this, I always like to be part of the solution and not just the problem, right? And
Yeah,
not dwell more on things that can be, and talk more on what can we do to move the needle, right? Because we could have a bunch of people talk about the problems and the ideal situations, but fortunately, both of us were on the side of the solution. We're on identity space and we're creating a lot of solutions. But interesting to know what your perspective is, just from IDverse perspective in terms of things you've seen, around the identity space, things that you think needs to be done. And I'm happy also to share how we think about it from Prembly.
yeah, no, 100%. I think, look, I've been in this space for 10 years now, so I've seen it evolve over those 10 years. When it first started, it was quite clunky, so you'd have to take a picture. They weren't very good at signposting that you needed to take a picture of your ID document, so people would drop off because they have to go find their driving license or their passport or whatever identity document it is. And then they would take a picture of it. You could be waiting a day or something for somebody to manually look at a document and say it's good. I think the vendors in this space, like ourselves, they've got better at automating some, but there's
Yeah.
still a huge proportion of them out there that rely on
Hmm.
humans to check documents. So
Hmm.
that slows things down, and naturally humans make mistakes, right? So actually using technology to accelerate the automation enables organizations like us to not have to use humans at all to check that identity. And some of the advancements in deepfakes and generative AI now mean that it's very easy to create a fake document that a human being can't spot and can't detect. So you're crossing the chasm now where technology is better at spotting fake documents than humans. We've seen that in biometrics for a long time. It's largely accepted that technology is better at identifying somebody's face and comparing it than a human being would be, because humans you can do it, but you have to be very trained and you have to know what to look out for, and it takes time. Whereas technology can do all of those checks really quickly. So that's the biggest technology change I've seen over these 10 years is there's no need for a manual process anymore. You can fully automate that process and get people through that journey really quickly. And that's largely thanks to mobile phone technology and the capability of these selfie sticks that everyone's carrying around now,
Hmm.
because the technology advancements in those phones have enabled the vendors and technology partners like ourselves to
Yeah.
to really check somebody is who they say they are. They're living, they're breathing. It's a real, live, and present document,
Yeah.
and get people through that process nice and easily and quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good perspective. Just from your lens, and honestly, we do have very similar lens. We think, like you said, mobile technology is a great part of digital identity. Almost everyone has some form of mobile device with them. It could be smart, it could be, it may not be smart, but someone has something they use to communicate. I think that should be a great deal of that should be used as a great deal of digital identity, because there are a whole lot of data points that you have in just one device. How someone calls, things around this kind of services that they access and all this sort of things. And of course, as long as things around privacy and consent and all that are taken care of, and which is very important when it comes to identity. I completely agree that mobile technology should be a great part of identity systems. And from our perspective, apart from mobile identity, we do firstly, in terms of you've mentioned the manual aspects. Yes, there's so many identity systems today. That's the manual, right? And from our perspective, we think firstly, we take it from an angle of, and I can roll back a little bit. We take it from an angle of we need to be big as players and those within the solution space, and of course the policymakers. We need to be big on privacy. We need to be big on consent when it comes to identity systems, right? We also need to give a little bit of control to the owners of those identity, right? Um, Also, I think we need to do some level of standardization of identity systems. You were mentioning the biometric systems in South Africa, for instance, and how advanced it is. And you have some other countries that are not even as close as that, right? And as a business owner, now sometimes you need to, customize your solution in a way that accommodates so many other use cases, right? Because of course there's no global standard to certain things, right? And on identity systems. And of course, I know that's where we come in, and that's why we remain in business to be able to create that level of standard. And regardless of the country, we can get it and give you. But from a what's it called? From a general public perspective, and from our lens, we think there should be some great deal of standardization and along most of the systems. And policy. We would think. I mean, from our perspective, we think the policy makers should go a little bit closer to how the innovation works. A couple of innovations right now that we would be able to release, either jointly or individually as different companies, that are still limited based on some regulatory concerns, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we need regulators to pay more attention and move the needle sometimes a little bit, but of course securely, but in a way that makes the entire society more secured and makes everyone to be able to be, have access to global or local services. That's some of the things, to be honest, that we'll think about from just looking at digital identity system generally, and where we think, there's a great deal of improvement across board. So
Yeah.
clearly, it looks like we have almost the same perspective when it comes to mobile development and mobile technology and improving this
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
something else to add to that is there's no silver bullet out there, right? The job
yeah,
we've got is to
yeah,
make things easy for organizations to understand and know who their customer is, and that's a
yeah,
layering effect. So it's not just data, it's not just documents, not just biometrics. You need to really
yeah,
use all of those to make it really easy for a
yeah,
customer to get access to those services, whatever they
yeah,
might be. So I think yeah, it's again, technology is evolving and there's always new stuff coming out, and
yeah,
are the regulators keeping pace with the technology trends that are happening?
yeah,
And some governments do a fantastic job. They create sandboxes where it's a safe environment to push the
yeah. Open
boundaries,
data. Yeah,
use innovation, try things out without harm of like repercussions.
hmm,
And I think that they're really great because it creates that real safe environment to go out there and push the boundaries. And that's something that I love from IDverse's perspective. They're always pushing the boundaries and they're always testing and making sure that we're on top of the either the fraud trends that are happening by monitoring all the deepfake websites that are out there, or the technology changes that are happening. So when the new Apple Provisions came out, the first thing the founders did, they were in the queue and they bought a couple of them, took them apart to see what technology is in there, what new
yeah,
stuff is coming out. And I
yeah,
think we're going to live in a world of a future where actually mobile phones will probably disappear and it'll all go into a contact lens.
Right.
Samsung have already patented a nanotechnology in a contact lens, so it'll be like the Minority Report, where your eye is your new mobile phone sort of
You need
thing.
more.
So
Yeah. Yes. And
maybe a
your
few
eyes is the
years off.
lens.
We're probably a few years
Yes.
off it yet, but it's coming. What
Yes.
you heard it here first.
Yes. And you're right. Those technologies are coming. Of course, we've seen an amazing use of AI in the last 1 year. From a consumer perspective, of course, AI, the concept of AI has been for years,
Yeah.
multiple decades, but people haven't used interface with AI as much as they've done the last 2 years with OpenAI coming up. But talking about technology, and you mentioned a great point about what Samsung has done. What do you think that people should do, in area of identity space? Um, you know, what we can have so many fancy technology, we can have a lot of, technology that could improve lives. But let's talk a little bit more about the people themselves that
Yeah.
would use the technology or that we interface with, that owns their identity, right? What do you think, they should do better? What do you think they should know? Just from what do you think?
Yeah, I think obviously we're blessed because we're in the industry, so we probably think about this more than the most general public do.
Hmm.
The general public probably don't understand actually how much data is out there about them already. And the fact of the matter is, most people's data is out there on the dark web somewhere because it's been compromised, and that's
Yes.
because of lack of security, or they answering questionnaires on social media about all these security questions that they don't realize that they're giving away the keys to the castle, right? So I think it's being more security and privacy aware. Like, you've just
Yeah.
passed your driving test, don't post a picture of your driving license online. There's technology in there to stop that being
Yeah.
reused, so we can tell if it's being captured off the screen or if it's printed out and things like that. But just being more security aware, I think everyone's got a responsibility to try and protect their own credentials. I heard somebody, I was at a Bitcoin conference, and they were
Hmm.
saying that when they had their children, they're still quite young, they decided not to share their real date of birth and their real name. So they gave them a legal
Hmm.
identity, but they made up a name, another name, and another date of birth
Ooh.
to
Okay, that's a
stop
first.
their details. So if somebody
Yeah.
did compromise their details, and then they went and checked the legal databases, it wouldn't match. So they're
Yeah.
protecting
Yeah.
our identity. And it's like, God, have we really come to that point where you've got to do that sort of extreme security and lie about your name and your age to protect your true identity? So then it's
Yeah.
a question of, well, what is your true identity, right? And I think you touched upon that a bit about accessing what websites you're accessing. Are you logged in?
Yeah.
Are you logged out? How
Yeah.
frequently do you go on that? Is it normal behavior and patterns and things like that? So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, people just need to be more self-aware about what they're sharing, who they're sharing it with. But I think also organizations like us have got a responsibility to not have to make the general consumer or general public think too hard about it. Let us do the hard work and the hard thinking and the
Yes.
security aspect to support
Yes.
them to just get on with their lives and do what they want to do, which
Yes.
is their day-to-day living, right? Let
Yes.
us make things easier for you and for the client that's trying to onboard them. It's that we've got a big responsibility in this piece as well as to the consumer.
Yes. Completely agree. Completely agree. The self-awareness is a big part of what I also think that people should do. Um, but like what you've said, some people are just a victim of those data breach, and I'm not, some people are really cautious about, where they share their data, but somehow, data breach still happen, and sometimes they're not even aware, and they have the details, stored somewhere, by some what's it called, bad actors and all that. And I think you touched on the point perfectly when you say, you know, we should take on the responsibility of ensuring that people can trust us. And we think more about the security aspect, what they can, be at rest knowing the fact that we are helping them secure their identity, and only authorized persons or companies can, access them, of course, can access some of those things. And just makes me think about the idea of what's it called? Just a lot of my chains of thoughts over there. Um, I was going to talk about the idea where, sometimes when people have data breach and not when it happens,
Yeah,
the individuals themselves do not even know what to do,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
They just, they just found the data somewhere and all that. And yeah, great. I think I just remember what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that what I would, you know, what I would expect people should do more often is they should question companies that offer critical services that are not
mhm,
using any form of identity security or verification solutions like ours.
yeah,
Um, if I want to send money to someone in other part of the world and you're not verifying me, you're not, and I submitted like a fake identity and you still allowed me to make the transaction, I should get concerned. Um, and I should really question the businesses to say, hey, why are you not using, products as offered by IDverse or Prembly, to verify. I think people should be cautious of when they are able to breeze through some critical healthcare, financial space, insurance space, cross-border payment, when they're able to breeze through the service without any form of confirmation on their end
yeah,
that yes, this is who I am, right? And I think they should be concerned because that shows that such businesses just, they're some of the systems that, other bad actors are able to gain access to and harvest data from illegally, right? And I think that's one of the things that people should pay more attention to.
yeah, yeah. And that the fraud's only increasing, isn't it? So it's
Hmm.
all the technology and all of the systems that are available. If you don't implement them properly and correctly, and you don't pick a vendor that's keeping up with the fraud trends, then things aren't going to get better, right? So you need
Yeah,
it's a fast moving world in fraud, and
yeah,
people with all the data that's breached, you've got to be
yeah,
using the latest technology to keep up with the fraudsters. I think they'll always be one step ahead because they've got no regulations or repercussions. They can just try things out and research and
you know,
develop. Whereas, so it's down to us to understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, and quickly make changes to systems to keep pace with the fraud trends that we're seeing happening in the market.
yeah, completely agree. And that sometimes makes me remember the importance of, or reminds me, sorry, of the importance of what we do. And, today we do millions of verifications, tens of millions of verifications, of course, monthly. And you know, and what that means is because we exist, we're able to allow people to access critical, very vital services that they might not be able to access if we had not say, yes, this is actually who he or she, or whatever pronoun that the person goes with, says they are. And I'm just, what do you think about that? The importance of what we do, allowing people to access critical services that probably they wouldn't have access to it. I do personally think it's a privilege to be able to do that still.
Yeah, no, definitely, and it's not just that, but you're protecting those individuals as well, because if their accounts are compromised because you're not doing the identity system checks that you need to do properly, then at the end of the day they can lose a lot of money and a lot of trust, and yes,
Yeah.
they might get it back through insurances or the banks refund them, but it can still have a huge negative impact on that individual's life, right? That can be
Yeah.
life changing. So
Yeah.
it's what we're doing is protecting people's um, identity. Yes, we're making it easy for them to open up bank accounts, or if they're gambling online or anything like this, then it's making it easy. But it's
Yeah.
it's again, it's that balance of yes, it's an easy process now, which hasn't always been the case, but also it's a highly secure process as well.
Yeah.
That protects not only the organization, but the individual's details as well. And that privacy preserving technology is fundamental to the success and the growth we're seeing in this space. And yeah, I'm privileged to work at an organization and partner with an organization as well, whereas at the heart of it, we're doing good out there, and we're using AI and technology for good. Where there's a lot of people out there using it for the wrong reasons as well. So yeah, we're fighting back with good technology.
Yeah, yeah. When the bad gang team, yeah, and I think you're apt in saying we're using technology for good. Just like technology can be used for so many things, but we've decided to use it for the good part and make sure that people feel safe, not actually even feel safe alone, they're actually safe. By just interfacing with our technology. I think it's a great privilege. I do really appreciate that. I do you think that that probably is enough chats for today, Adam. Except of course, maybe we should talk about, do you have any song that kind of sums up your identity as a person?
Yeah,
Does any
I
of the
mean,
song come to mind?
one of my favorite songs is Lucas Graham. It's called 7 Years, and I think it goes with the theme
Ooh,
I've
I know
been
that
talking
one.
about today. Is actually your identity starts from a relatively young age, from the day you're born.
Yes.
And this song's all about from when you're a young kid and how you go through different experiences and life things as you get
Yes.
older. So yeah, that song always resonates and strikes a chord with me. So yeah, if you've
Yeah.
not heard it, give it a listen and listen to the words. I think it's very, very apt for
Yeah.
me. I do like a
Yeah.
whiskey now and again as well.
Yeah, I'm not. Sometimes, a few years ago, I used to listen to that song almost every single now and then. It's like dun 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 dun
Yeah,
dun dun. Yeah,
that's the
I'm
one.
not
That's
really
the
good.
one.
Yeah, I don't want to
We'll
sing
do
it. I'm
karaoke
not really.
night another time. How about
Yeah,
you, Lanre? Have you got a song?
I do have a song that very quite old song. It was sang in 1969. It's one of my favorite songs actually. It's called My Way, My Way by Frank
Yeah.
Sinatra.
Yeah.
And it goes, dun 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 dun, I did it my way, whatever.
Right, yeah,
But
yeah, I
but
like that.
yeah,
I
but
think
what?
everyone will be familiar with that one. I think it's a classic, that one, isn't it?
Yes, and what makes it resonate with me and my identity is when you listen to the song, it just talks about how you lived your life. You know,
Yeah.
you lived it the way you wanted to live it.
Yeah. Everyone's an
And
individual, right?
everyone's an individual, and that's your identity. And you talked about, identity starts from when you were given birth to, and literally what you do from the day you take your first breath till you die, literally is an entire picture of your identity. And that
Yeah.
song is some that this song is the one that literally just sums up what I think, from my perspective, identity should be.
Yeah, I love it. Like it.
Great, great. Okay. Adam, really not chatting. I really do hope we can do this some other time again, just catching up and just, sharing some of our thoughts. And have people just see what our perspective are on topics like this, critical topics, and hopefully we can have another section again like this some other time.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. It's good to catch up.
Great. All right. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Lanre.
Yeah.